Hey everyone, and welcome back to the AnzenGuard Podcast. I'm Micah Reynolds.
And I'm Laura Wilson.
So today we're diving into something I think a lot of people are wondering about these days. Do you really need antivirus software in 2024? I mean, it seems like every device comes with some kind of built-in security now. You hear people saying antivirus is dead, but we've got some really interesting information from a couple of cybersecurity companies that's going to help us really break this down.
You know what's really interesting to me is that even though these companies actually sell antivirus software, they still acknowledge that the whole threat landscape online has really shifted. It's not just about like those basic computer viruses anymore.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the sources we've got here actually highlight that there are like over 350,000 new malware threats coming out every single day. That's crazy. It's like a digital arms race out there.
It really is. And that's why just relying on, that it's built in so I'm good, thinking can be kind of risky. Think about it this way. Windows Defender or that X-Protect thing on Mac OS, those built-in security features, they're kind of like the basic locks on your front door. They'll maybe stop someone who's just casually trying to get in, but against a serious cyber criminal, probably not going to cut it.
Okay, so not exactly Fort Knox level security then.
Yeah.
Got it. But how does antivirus actually work? Like, I get that it's supposed to stop bad stuff from happening.
Yeah.
But what's the actual process? What's going on behind the scenes?
Well, modern antivirus software is actually really sophisticated. It's not just about recognizing viruses that are already out there anymore. It actually uses this thing called behavior-based detection. So basically, it can spot threats based on what they're doing, even if it's a brand new threat that's never been seen before.
So it's like having a security guard who's not just checking IDs, but is actually watching for any kind of suspicious behavior.
Exactly. They're looking for any little sign that something's not right. Like, let's say a program suddenly tries to get into your personal files or starts encrypting your data. That's a huge red flag. Right. And good antivirus software will jump into action, quarantine that threat, and hopefully completely shut it down before it can do any damage.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better. So it's not just about catching the bad guys we already know about. It's about being able to spot new tricks, too.
Exactly. And the fact that Windows is still the biggest target for these attacks, I mean, the sources we have say it's a crazy 87% of ransomware attacks are aimed at Windows. That really shows why antivirus is still so important. Even with their built-in security, Windows users are just more vulnerable.
Wow, okay. So what about people using other operating systems like our Mac users or Android users or even iPhone people totally in the clear?
Well, while other operating systems are definitely generally less vulnerable, you have to remember no system is perfect. Cyber criminals are constantly looking for new ways to exploit weaknesses. And even iOS, which is known for being pretty secure, has had its share of threats.
So even if you're on a Mac or an iPhone, you can't just assume you're totally safe.
Nope, not at all. And that's where we get into this whole discussion about free versus paid antivirus software. Free options are a decent starting point, but they often have limitations, like they might only protect one device, or they might be missing some of the more advanced features.
So free is good for testing the waters.
Yeah.
But if you really want that solid protection and peace of mind, you probably want to go with a paid option.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Think of it this way. With free antivirus, you're basically getting the basic security guard. They're doing their best, but they might not have all the tools and training they need to handle every single situation. With paid antivirus, it's more like having a whole team of security experts. They're watching everything, constantly ready to respond to any kind of threat that pops up.
Okay, so paid antivirus is like having a whole security detail for your digital life.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting. A lot of antivirus programs now come with all these extra features like VPNs, password managers, parental controls. It's kind of becoming a one-stop shop for all things digital safety.
It's like they're saying, hey, we're not just about stopping viruses anymore. We want to protect your whole online experience.
Exactly. They're recognizing that security is about a lot more than just one thing. You need a whole system to protect your data, your privacy, and all your devices.
That makes sense. So VPNs, those are becoming really popular these days. Are they basically just another layer of security on top of antivirus, or is there something more to it?
VPNs and antivirus are actually kind of like two sides of the same coin. They work together to give you a much more complete picture of security. Think of antivirus as protecting your device from internal threats, like those bad files you might accidentally download or that somehow sneak onto your system.
Okay, so that's the antivirus's job. What about the VPN then?
Well, the VPN is mainly focused on protecting your connection. It creates this secure tunnel for all your internet traffic, encrypting your data and making it way harder for hackers to intercept it, especially when you're using public Wi-Fi.
Oh yeah, public Wi-Fi hotspots. Those are basically a hacker's dream, right?
They can be. yeah. Especially if they're not secured. You
Mhm.
never know who's lurking on those networks trying to snoop on your data. But when you use a VPN, your traffic is encrypted. So it's much, much harder for anyone to see what you're doing.
So it's like having a shield around your data as it travels across the internet, even on those sketchy public Wi-Fi networks.
Exactly. So while antivirus is protecting your device, the VPN is protecting your connection. And together they offer a way more comprehensive approach to online security.
Got it. So it sounds like having both antivirus and a VPN is a pretty good idea.
Yeah, they really complement each other well.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting? The sources we've got here actually point out that even though iOS is considered very secure, a VPN can still be really useful for iPhone and iPad users.
Really? Why is that? I thought iOS was basically impenetrable.
It is really secure, but a VPN can add this extra layer of privacy, especially when you're browsing online or using public Wi-Fi. It can also help you get around those geo restrictions and access content that might be blocked in your region.
So it's not just about security, it's about privacy and access too. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
But wow, we've covered a lot of ground here already. Before we get into all the details of choosing the right antivirus and VPN, I think we need to take a little pause.
Yeah, let's take a breather and come back to dive even deeper into the world of digital security. Welcome back to the AnzenGuard Podcast. We're going to keep diving deeper into the world of antivirus software in 2024.
Yeah, and before we took that break, we were talking about how VPNs and antivirus work together, to keep you safe online. But I'm curious about what actually makes a good antivirus program stand out. What are the things we should really be looking for when we're trying to choose one?
That's a really good question. One of the biggest things is definite real-time protection. You really want a program that's always on guard. Constantly scanning files and processes as they happen, not just when you remember to run a scan.
So it's like not just having a security guard, but making sure that guard is actually paying attention, not like sleeping on the job or something.
Exactly. You want that proactive protection happening all the time in the background, always watching for anything suspicious. And speaking of scans, you also want an antivirus program that has a bunch of different scan options, not just like a basic system scan.
Okay, so what else is there? What other kinds of scans should we be looking for?
Well, there are quick scans, which are good for a really fast checkup of your system. And then you've got deep scans. Those take a bit longer, but they're way more thorough. They go through every single file and folder on your whole device. And you should also have the option to schedule scans, so you can just set it up and forget about it. Knowing your system is being checked regularly without you having to remember.
Automation. I love when technology just takes care of things for me.
Yeah.
So we've got real-time protection, different scan options. What else? What about ransomware? That seems to be a really big deal these days. Those attacks are happening more and more often.
Oh, you're totally right. Ransomware is a huge threat. And any decent antivirus program should have specific protection against it. Usually this means it's watching for any signs of suspicious file encryption activity. And then it blocks those processes right away before they can lock up your data and hold it hostage.
Well, it's kind of like having a security system that can not only see an intruder coming, but can actually stop them from ransacking your house.
Haha, yeah, that's a great analogy. And then there's web protection, which is another really important part of staying safe online. This is things like anti-phishing tools, which can warn you if you're about to visit a sketchy website or stop you from downloading a malicious file.
Oh yeah, phishing. That's where they try to trick you into giving up your passwords or credit card info, right?
Right.
I've definitely gotten some emails before that looked totally real, but turned out to be scams. It's scary how good they are at making those things look legit.
It's crazy how sophisticated those phishing scams have become. They could be super convincing, which is why having that extra protection from your antivirus software is so essential.
Right. Okay. So we've got real-time protection, all those scan options, ransomware protection, web protection. It's starting to sound like a pretty comprehensive package.
Yeah, it really is. And a lot of programs go even further. They offer extras like parental controls or password manager.
Oh, yeah, parental controls. Those are a lifesaver for families with kids. You can use them to filter out inappropriate content, set screen time limits, and even keep track of where your kids are. It's almost like having a digital babysitter.
Yeah, it is. And then password managers. Those are amazing for anyone who, like me, has trouble remembering all their different passwords, They store all your login info securely, so you only have to remember one master password to access everything. Super helpful.
So tons of features. Sounds great. But with all this stuff, I'm guessing antivirus software can get pretty expensive.
Well, the prices can vary a lot. You've got free options all the way up to premium suites that can be over $100 a year. Free antivirus programs are a good starting point. especially if you're on a tight budget.
Yeah.
But like we talked about before, they usually have some limitations.
Right. They might only work on one device, or they might not have all those fancy features we were just talking about. So if I want the best possible protection, I probably need to be ready to spend some money.
Yeah, probably. The paid programs just tend to offer more complete protection, more features, and better customer support. They're also more likely to be updated regularly with the latest info about threats, which is super important because the whole cybersecurity landscape is changing so fast.
So when I'm trying to choose a paid antivirus program, what are the most important things to consider?
Well, obviously price is a factor, but it shouldn't be the only thing. You think about reputation is really important too. You want to go with a company that has a good track record, a history of providing solid antivirus protection that people trust.
So do some research, read some reviews, see how they stack up against other programs in those independent tests.
Yeah, exactly. Look for reviews from sources you trust, see how well they do at actually finding and getting rid of malware, and make sure they're not known for, slowing down your computer.
Yeah, I've heard some antivirus programs can be real resource hogs. Like they can make your computer run super slow.
Oh, totally. That's definitely something you want to avoid. You want an antivirus program that's effective but also lightweight so that it doesn't bog down your system. And another thing to think about is how many devices you need to protect. Some programs offer multi-device licenses, which can be a really good deal if you've got a bunch of computers or smartphones or tablets.
Right, because these days it's not just about your computer anymore. You might have a tablet, a smartphone, maybe even a smart TV, and you want to make sure they're all secure.
Exactly. And one last thing, don't underestimate the importance of customer support. If you're not super tech savvy, you're going to want a program that has good customer support, so you can get help if you run into any problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sometimes it's nice to know you got someone to call if things go wrong.
Oh.
Okay, so to recap, when you're choosing an antivirus program, we need to think about price, reputation, performance, multi-device options, and customer support. That's a lot to remember.
It is. There's a lot to consider, and we haven't even gotten into specific brands and recommendations yet. But before we do that, I think we need to take a quick break.
You're right. We've covered a lot of ground already. We'll be right back to finish up our deep dive into antivirus software. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the AnzenGuard Podcast. We're in the home stretch now of our deep dive into antivirus software in 2024.
It really has been quite a journey, exploring all this stuff about online threats and how to protect ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. And before the break, we were just about to get into some specific antivirus brands and maybe some recommendations. I think everybody wants to know, who's the best? Who comes out on top?
Well, it's not really a winner-takes-all kind of thing. Different programs have different strengths and weaknesses. What might be perfect for one person might not be the best fit for someone else. But there are definitely some brands that consistently do really well in those independent tests, and they get great reviews from users.
Okay, so who are we talking about? Who are the big players in the antivirus world right now?
I bet you've heard of a lot of them. Norton McAfee Bitdefender, Kaspersky Avast. These are some of the names that really stand out.
Yeah, those are definitely some familiar names. So what makes them so good? What sets them apart from the rest?
They all tend to have a really solid set of features. Everything we've been talking about, real-time protection, multiple scan options, ransomware protection, web protection. And a lot of them even include those bonus features like password managers and VPNs and parental controls. Plus, they've got a good track record when it comes to actually catching and removing malware.
So they're kind of like the department stores of digital security.
Yeah.
You can pretty much find everything you need all in one place.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. But just like with shopping, it's always a good idea to compare prices, read reviews, and really figure out what features are the most important to you.
Right. Don't just go with the first one you see. Do your research.
Exactly. And remember, what works for one person might not work for another. You really have to think about your own tech skills, the kinds of devices you use, and of course your budget.
Yeah, that's true. Because even if an antivirus program gets amazing reviews, if it's too complicated for you to use or it makes your computer run super slow,
Yeah.
it's not going to do you much good.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to look at those independent test results. Organizations like AV Test and AV Comparatives, they really put these programs through the ringer. They check how effective they are, how well they perform, and how easy they are to use.
So they're like the Consumer Reports of the antivirus world. They give you that unbiased info so you can make a smart decision.
Exactly. And don't forget, even with the best antivirus software out there, you still need to be smart when you're online.
Right. Technology can only do so much. We have to do our part too.
Absolutely. Always be careful about what websites you visit. Don't click on links from people you don't know, and keep your operating system and all your software up to date, with the latest security patches. And one more thing, back up your important data regularly. That way, even if something does go wrong, you're not starting from scratch.
That's great advice. It's like wearing a seatbelt. It might not prevent every single accident, but it can make a huge difference if something bad does happen.
Exactly. Security is all about having those layers of protection. You want to make it as hard as possible for those cyber criminals to get to you.
Okay, so we've got antivirus VPNs, safe browsing habits, regular backups. Anything else we should be doing to stay safe online?
One more thing, stay informed. The whole world of cybersecurity is constantly changing. There are always new threats popping up. So it's super important to stay up to date on the latest trends and best practices. Read articles, listen to podcasts like this one. The more you know, the better you'll be able to protect yourself.
Great advice. Well, I think we've covered just about everything there is to know about antivirus software in 2024.
We really have explored a lot, from the basics all the way to some pretty advanced stuff.
Yeah, I definitely feel a lot more confident about navigating all this digital security stuff now. Thanks for all the great info.
It's been my pleasure. Always happy to talk about this stuff.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on the AnzenGuard Podcast today. I'm Michael Reynolds.
And I'm Laura Wilson.
We really hope you found this deep dive into the world of antivirus software helpful and informative. If you did, please do us a favor and subscribe, like, comment, and share this episode with your friends and family. Stay safe out there.